The Secret to Mental Clarity, a Stoic Guide. My phone buzzes. It's the 14th notification in the last 10 minutes. My laptop screen is a mess of open tabs, each one blinking, reminding me of another job half finished. My desk looks like a paper recycling plant exploded. And my mind feels exactly the same. It's like a web browser with 1,000 tabs open, all of them playing different sounds, and I can't figure out how to close a single one. This isn't just a busy day anymore. This has become my normal state of being. It's a low-grade hum of anxiety, a constant feeling of being overwhelmed, and a sense that I'm always just reacting to life, never actually choosing my path. I'm living in a state of mental chaos, and honestly, I'm just exhausted. So, I decided to do something pretty radical. I decided to trade all this modern chaos for some ancient wisdom. For one entire week, I was going to disconnect from the noise and try to live by the disciplined daily routines of the ancient Stoic philosophers. I'm talking about people like Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor, Seneca, a famous political advisor, and Epictetus, a former slave who became a legendary teacher. These were people who navigated war, exile, and incredible pressure, not with frantic energy, but with a calm, focused mind. They had a formula, a set of practices designed to build an unbeatable mind. I wanted to see if their ancient toolkit could fix my modern, cluttered life. The results weren't what I expected. They were way more transformative. The premise: setting the rules. Before I jumped in, I had to understand what I was getting myself into. Stoicism isn't about being emotionless or grim. It's a philosophy built for action. It's about figuring out the difference between what you can control and what you can't, and then pouring all your energy into the things you can. So, I set the rules for my one-week experiment, choosing 5 core Stoic practices to follow every single day. First, each morning would begin with reflection, not my phone. I'd wake up and spend time just contemplating the day ahead and my own thoughts. Second, I'd practice premeditatio malorum, or what's called negative visualization. This means you intentionally think about what could go wrong during the day. It sounds weird, I know, but the Stoics used it to build resilience and cut down on anxiety. Third, I'd keep a daily journal, not to just record what happened, but to really look at my own judgments and reactions. Fourth, throughout the day, I had to consciously practice the dichotomy of control, always asking myself if what I was worried about was actually in my power to change. And finally, each evening would end with a review of the day, looking at my actions against my own values, not my productivity. The goal wasn't to get more done, but to find inner peace in a world that never stops demanding more. I was ready. Or so I thought. Day 1. The shock of discipline. The first alarm went off at 5:30 a.m. It was dark, it was cold, and my first instinct was to hit snooze and crawl back into warmth and sleep. But the challenge demanded discipline. The Stoics believed in what they called voluntary hardship, deliberately choosing to be uncomfortable to train your mind and spirit for life's inevitable challenges. So, I got up. My first task wasn't to check my email or the news, but to just sit in silence. It was excruciating. My mind, so used to its morning dose of digital distraction, was screaming for a fix. It jumped from my to-do list to a dumb comment I made yesterday, to a worry about a future project. Trying to quiet this inner noise felt less like meditation and more like wrestling an octopus. The Stoics teach that clarity is something you have to earn through discipline, and on day 1, I had neither. I just had a very clear awareness of how addicted my brain was to chaos. Then came the cold shower. This is a classic Stoic practice, a direct way to experience voluntary discomfort. As that freezing water hit my skin, every cell in my body just screamed in protest. It was a physical shock, but something interesting happened. For those 2 minutes, I couldn't think about anything else. I wasn't worried about my inbox or my schedule. I could only focus on my breath and on getting through that moment. When I stepped out, shivering, my mind was, for the first time all morning, completely silent. It was like a forced mindfulness. That fleeting moment of quiet was the first real hint that this week might actually work. Day 2. Taming the inner critic with pen and paper. The second day was all about one of the most famous Stoic practices, journaling. We know the Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius kept a journal. It was never meant to be published, but it survived for thousands of years as the book we now call Meditations. He wasn't writing a diary. He was giving himself advice, challenging his own perceptions, and reminding himself of his principles. So, I sat down with a blank notebook, and it felt incredibly awkward. What was I supposed to write? Dear Diary, today I felt anxious again. The instructions were clear. This was a private conversation with myself. I started with a simple prompt the Stoics used. What difficulties am I likely to run into today? I wrote about a meeting I was dreading, a tough email I had to send, my own habit of procrastinating. Marcus Aurelius famously wrote in the morning, "Today I shall be meeting with interference, ingratitude, insolence." By writing it down, he prepared himself. He managed his expressions so that when he inevitably met difficult people, he wouldn't be shaken. As I wrote, I felt this strange sense of relief. The thoughts that had been swirling around in my head, all formless and menacing, now looked manageable on the page. They were just words. Translating thoughts to paper is a powerful thing. It pulls the chaos out of your head and makes it something you can actually look at and analyze. That evening, I did the second part of the practice, the evening reflection. I asked myself a question Seneca often posed: where did I act out of impulse rather than reason? I wrote about snapping at a colleague because I was stressed, about scrolling on my phone instead of finishing a report. This wasn't about beating myself up. It was about self-awareness. The journal was becoming a mirror, showing me the gap between the person I wanted to be calm, rational, virtuous, and the person I sometimes was reactive and impulsive. Seeing that gap so clearly was painful, but for the first time, it felt like a problem I could actually solve. Day 3. The power of what you can control. Day 3 was the turning point. This was the day I really leaned into the most fundamental idea in all of Stoicism, the dichotomy of control. The philosopher Epictetus said it best: some things are up to us, and some things are not. So what's up to us? Our opinions, our choices, our actions. And what's not up to us? Pretty much everything else. Our bodies, our property, our reputations, what other people think and do, the weather, the economy. The secret to a peaceful life, the Stoics argued, is to pour all your energy into what you can control and calmly accept what you can't. It sounds simple, but it's a revolutionary idea in a world that tells us we can and should control everything. That morning, I got a text that sent that familiar jolt of anxiety through my chest. A friend cancelled plans at the last minute. The old me would have spiraled. Why did they cancel? Are they mad at me? Now my whole evening is ruined. My mind would have been consumed by things completely outside of my control. But this time, I stopped. I took a breath and pictured 2 columns in my mind. In the not in my control column, my friend cancelling their reasons why, and their opinion of me. In the "in my control" column, my reaction, how I choose to spend my now free evening, and my own thoughts about it all. It was like a switch flipped. The anxiety didn't just vanish, but it lost its power over me. It was no longer a fire raging through my mind. It was a small, contained flame I could just observe. I realized my suffering didn't come from the cancelled plans. It came from my judgment about the cancelled plans. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." I spent the rest of the day applying this filter to everything. Stuck in traffic? I can't control the cars, but I can control my breathing and what I listen to. A client sent a demanding email. I can't control their expressions, but I can control how professional and clear my response is. This wasn't about becoming passive. It was about being smart with my energy. When you stop wasting effort on things you can't change, you suddenly have so much more energy for what truly matters. I felt lighter and more focused than I had in years. Day 4. Preparing for the worst, finding the calm. Today's core practice was premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils. This is probably the most misunderstood Stoic exercise. It's not about being a pessimist. It's a form of mental armor. It's a tool to build resilience by rehearsing for things going wrong. Seneca reminded us that we often suffer more in our imagination than we do in reality. This practice is designed to train that imagination, to make it work for you, not against you. My morning session went like this. I sat down and calmly pictured my day. Then I imagined things going wrong. That big presentation I had, I imagined the projector failing. I pictured my boss challenging my data. I even imagined fumbling my words. I didn't dwell on it to the point of panic. I just pictured the scenario, and then, this is the most important part. I visualized myself handling it with calm and reason. I saw myself taking a deep breath, having a backup plan ready, and responding to questions thoughtfully, not defensively. The effect was incredible. Instead of making me more anxious, it did the opposite. I walked into my day, not tense and fearful, but prepared. The Stoics saw this as being like a weather forecast. When you know a storm might be coming, you bring a coat. You aren't surprised or angry about the rain, you're just ready for it. The presentation actually went smoothly, but a smaller challenge did pop up. A key person I needed to talk to was suddenly unavailable. The pre-Stoic me would have been thrown off, frustrated, my whole day derailed by this one obstacle. But because I had mentally prepared for things not going perfectly, my mind just saw it as an expected hiccup, not a catastrophe. I didn't waste energy on frustration. I just pivoted to the next task. This practice is teaching me that what stands in the way can become the way. By expecting and preparing for difficulty, you rob it of its power to surprise you. Day 5. The view from above. Modern life has a way of making our problems feel enormous. A stressful project, an argument, a financial worry, they can expand to fill our entire mental landscape. On day 5, I tackled this with a Stoic visualization technique that Marcus Aurelius often wrote about, the view from above. The practice is pretty simple. When you feel overwhelmed by a problem, you zoom out. You imagine yourself in your room, then see your house from above, then your city, then your country floating on the globe. You keep going until you see the earth as a tiny, shimmering dot in the vast, silent darkness of space. You think about the immense sweep of history, of all the civilizations that have come and gone, the billions of lives lived. I tried this in the middle of the afternoon when I was stuck on a work problem, and feeling really frustrated. My shoulders were tense, my thoughts were looping, and the problem felt like an impossible wall. So I closed my eyes. I pictured myself at my desk. Then I floated up, looking down at my building, then my entire city spread out below. I kept rising, seeing the curve of the earth, a beautiful blue marble against infinite blackness. From that cosmic perspective, my work problem, that thing that felt so huge just moments before, was rendered almost invisible. It wasn't that the problem disappeared, but its emotional weight just evaporated. It was put back in its proper place. My anxiety about it suddenly seemed absurd. As Marcus Aurelius said, "Thoughts like this wash off the mud of life below." This is such a powerful antidote to the narrow, self-focused anxiety that can plague us. It doesn't make your life insignificant. It makes it precious. It frees you from the tyranny of your own worries and lets you engage with your life with a little more grace and a lot less stress. Day 6. Finding stillness in the noise. For the first 5 days, the practices were mostly mental thinking, visualizing, and writing. Day 6 was about the body. The Stoics understood that the mind and body aren't separate things, they're deeply connected. To calm the mind, sometimes you have to start by calming the body. My focus for the day was on mindfulness and controlled breathing. The perfect test came around lunchtime. A flurry of urgent emails arrived all at once. I felt that familiar tightening in my chest, my breath getting shallow, that initial wave of panic. My nervous system was kicking into fight or flight mode over a handful of digital messages. Instead of diving in and reacting, I pushed my chair back, closed my eyes, and just focused on my breath using a simple technique called box breathing. You just inhale for 4 seconds, hold for 4, exhale for 4, and hold for 4. I did this for less than 2 minutes. The effect was immediate. My heart rate slowed, the frantic energy faded. I had created a tiny pocket of stillness. In that quiet space, I could look at the emails rationally. I could prioritize them, see that none of them were true emergencies, and plan my responses calmly. I was responding, not reacting. The Stoics knew that in the gap between a stimulus and our response is where our freedom lies. By using a simple physical technique, I had made that gap wider. I gave my rational mind a chance to catch up with my emotional impulses. This was a profound realization. Mental clarity isn't just about philosophy. It's also about having practical tools to manage your own body. Day 7. The transformation and the new normal. On the final day, I woke up before my alarm. I didn't feel that familiar sense of dread or the urge to grab my phone. I just felt quiet. I sat in the morning silence. And this time, it wasn't a battle. It was peaceful. I made my coffee, sat down with my journal, and thought about the person who had started this journey just a week earlier. The contrast was stark. The man from last week lived in a state of constant anxiety, a victim of his own racing mind. His desk was a mess, his focus was fractured, and his inner world was just loud. The man sitting here today felt different. My desk was clear, my mind was calmer. The 1,000 open tabs had finally been closed. The anxiety wasn't gone completely, but its volume had been turned way down. It no longer had the power to run the show. I had spent a week following the rules of ancient philosophers, and in doing so, I had found the secret to mental clarity. The secret isn't a single trick, it's a system. It's the daily practice of morning reflection, preparing for challenges, focusing your energy on what you can control, understanding your own mind through journaling, and calming your body. The biggest lesson is this: Stoicism doesn't promise a life free from problems. It promises something far more valuable, the inner strength to handle those problems with grace and wisdom. It teaches you that resilience isn't something you're born with, but a skill you build day by day. This week was an awakening. It proved to me that we have the power to change our inner world, no matter what's happening in the outer world. Conclusion. So what happens now? Do I go back to my old ways? Back to the frantic energy and the cluttered mind? Absolutely not. This week has fundamentally rewired my approach to daily life. I might not follow every single rule with the same rigid discipline, but the core principles have become part of my operating system. I'll keep starting my days with quiet reflection and journaling, because I've seen how powerful it is to begin with intention. I'll keep asking myself, is this in my control? Because that one question has dissolved more anxiety than anything else I've ever tried, and I'll keep using my breath as an anchor in moments of stress. Living a life of mental clarity and inner peace doesn't require you to abandon the modern world. It just requires a handful of timeless, practical tools and the discipline to use them. It all starts with small steps. If you feel like you're living in that state of chaos I described, I invite you to try your own version of this challenge. Don't try to do everything at once. Just pick one thing. For the next week, just try journaling for 5 minutes each morning, or practice the dichotomy of control on your commute, or maybe even try a cold shower. Start small. As the Stoics teach, well-being is realized by small steps, but is truly no small thing. It's about becoming a little stronger, a little calmer, and a little wiser than you were yesterday. And that is a journey worth taking.